10. Cave of the Crystal Sepulcher. The Cave of the Crystal Sepulcher is one of the strangest archaeological sites in the world. It was once used as a place for ceremonies in the Mayan kingdom. Today, it's located in Belize. To understand this cave a little better, we need to look at what the Maya believed in. They thought that the universe was divided into three main parts: the sky, the earth, and the underworld. They also thought that underground caves were portals to the underworld, which they thought was ruled by death gods. One of those caves is now known as the legendary Cave of the Crystal Sepulcher, and it, like its siblings, are as impressive as they are eerie. In fact, some of the caverns inside the cave are over 70 feet tall. There's also a stream that runs through the cave, where the Mayans believed Chak, their rain god, was born. Maya activity inside the cave went on from between 250 to 900 AD, and we know this because of artifacts found inside the cave, probably left as offerings for the gods of the dead. What's really interesting is that the offerings differed throughout the years. For example, archaeologists found that during times of extreme drought, instead of offering fresh cobs of maize to their gods, the Maya would offer humans instead, in bloody and often brutal sacrifices. I suppose that makes sense, in a disturbing way. It's one less mouth to feed, and it saves on corn. I don't know if I agree with their methods, but whoever decided on that strategy was clearly trying to be practical while they appeased the bloodthirsty gods. 9. Cave Temple of the Moon. Another amazing cave from what is now Latin America is the Cave Temple of the Moon at Machu Picchu. It is a vast complex, considered to be one of the most mysterious temples anywhere inside the great Inca city. It's located directly underneath the peak of Huayna Picchu, and despite its name, it has nothing to do with the Inca moon goddess called Mamakila. It was carved into a naturally occurring cave inside the peak of the mountain, which places it at an absurd 9,000 feet above sea level. And here's where things get really mystical. Nobody actually knows the purpose of the cave temple. Archaeologists aren't even sure where the name Temple of the Moon comes from. The only thing in it is a rather ominous-looking altar, where, just like their Mayan neighbors to the north, the Inca may have been performing human sacrifices. However, nobody can say for certain what the Inca were doing high up in the mountain cave. To be frank, I don't think they were just observing the stars, though. 8. Costa Rica Stone Spheres. The Costa Rica stone spheres have been mystifying experts for decades. They are located on the island of Isla del Cano. In total, there are about 300 of these strange spheres, which experts call the Diqui spheres. It's believed that they were probably crafted by the ancient Diqui culture, though why they left 300 circular balls spread throughout the region is still a bit of a mystery. The Diqui culture was one of complexity in the valley of the Rio Grande de Taraba. They showed up around the year 1500 BC and thrived until 800 AD, primarily in farming communities. They had a system of tribal government, which is known as a chiefdom. Around the year 800 AD, the small farming settlements turned into larger communities, and the people started building bigger creations. It was during this time that the Diqui people started carving the mysterious stone spheres and placing them in important zones within cities and settlements. They were usually placed in public plazas or outside the homes of the ruling chieftains. But what were they made out of? According to Heritage Daily, the spheres, some of which are over 6 feet in diameter, were carved from igneous rock, kind of like basalt, then smoothed by sand into a circle. They were lost when the Diqui vanished in the 16th century with the arrival of the Spanish, not discovered again until the 1930s. But when they were discovered, they caused quite a stir. I mean, wouldn't that make sense? They look like cannonballs from a cannon big enough to win a war by itself. I'd be scared of them if I discovered them. 7. Pella. Pella is the birthplace of one of the most famous rulers in the world, Alexander the Great. This archaeological site is next to the modern town of the same name in the north of Greece. According to most scholars, Pella was originally built as the capital of Macedon by King Archelaus I, back around 413 BC. Pella was also where Philip II was born, Alexander's father. While it's true that Alexander III of Macedon rose to the throne at the age of 20 and ended up building a massive empire that turned Macedon into a huge power, it was actually his father Philip who brought together the forces of classical Greece and gifted Alexander the fighting force that would take the world. As of today, Pella is little more than a grassy ruin. Much of it still hasn't even been excavated, including the royal palace. That means there are probably still ancient treasures waiting to be uncovered. The city ran into some trouble after the last king of Macedonia was defeated in 148 BC by the Romans, who then made Macedonia into one of their provinces. However, Pella wasn't destroyed by fighting. It was an earthquake in the year 90 BC that was the city's final undoing. 6. Ancient Citadel of Narenkala. The ancient Citadel of Narenkala is located at the edge of the Caspian Sea in southern Russia, specifically in the Republic of Dagestan. The citadel was built in the 6th century AD as part of a defensive system to protect the city of Derbent and the people of Transcaucasia against the invading nomads in the north. Along with the citadel, there was a huge perimeter wall to block any advancing army moving through the mountains, as well as seawalls to defend against enemies arriving by boat. In Persian, Narenkala translates roughly to the Sun Fortress. It was built on top of the hill that stands closest to the sea, used to keep enemies from passing. It also helped form a protected harbor for ships. This wasn't a boring citadel either. It was a huge fortress with a water supply system made from ceramic piping. It's also fascinating because it has survived to this day and still overlooks the modern city of Derbent. For once, a fortification actually worked, and the wall perimeter was never breached, allowing the area to prosper and grow from an ancient city into a modern one. Would you like to live in a walled fortress? It's probably extra safe and a pretty cool place to play hide and seek. Let us know in the comments below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. 5. Bedlam Burials. A bizarre archaeological site was discovered in the least expected place, the middle of the street in London. According to the BBC, archaeologists uncovered a burial ground underneath Liverpool Street that was used from between 1569 to 1738, with many of the bodies exhumed having been victims of the Black Death. About 3,000 skeletons have so far been excavated from this massive burial ground. It actually took a team of over 60 archaeologists to remove the skeletons and record the ancient evidence, as it seems this place, what is being called the Bedlam Burial Site, is arguably the most valuable cemetery in the entire city, representing 3 distinct centuries of death. It's giving archaeologists a unique chance to study and understand how Londoners lived back when most of them were dying from the plague. Another really amazing thing is that archaeologists also discovered an ancient Roman road that runs directly underneath the graveyard, meaning this single location that had been unknown before construction crews stumbled upon the ghoulish skeletons has been used for at least 2,000 years, turned from Roman road into Black Death burial, into metropolitan London. Just think, if you're walking around in London, you might be treading above the bones of people who lived thousands of years ago. Weird, huh? 4. Kombayo. The Kombayo tomb, also known as the Windows of Kombayo, is a group of tombs built by the Cajamarca culture of ancient Peru. From the outside, it looks as though someone carved dozens and dozens of square windows into the side of a mountain. However, these aren't windows. They are individual tombs in which an elite person from the society would be placed, kind of like putting a corpse into one of those lockers at the morgue. Now that's what I call creepy. From what archaeologists can gather, these tombs date to around the year 500 BC, and there are more than just the tombs at Kombayo. Tombs are all over the region, with huge necropolises carved periodically into the cliff walls. However, one of the downsides of creating tombs so out in the open is that they tend to be pillaged. Archaeologists have barely studied any of these tombs because they've been destroyed by people searching for grave goods. Almost all the archaeological value has been robbed or otherwise vandalized. You have to respect the architecture and effort behind this unique burial tradition though. 3. Giant Stone Ship. The Jelling Stone Ship is one of the more interesting archaeological sites in Denmark. The stone ship can be found at a Viking burial complex, shadowed by two huge burial mounds that were constructed by the legendary King Harald Bluetooth back in the 10th century AD. As you may already know, ship burials were pretty common with the Vikings. Someone of great importance would be buried, and a massive ship, more like the shape of a ship, would be built of stones and buried with them, along with grave goods in the burial mounds as well. It was believed that the ship would help facilitate the dead person's journey to the afterlife. Kinda makes sense, right? The Jellingstone ship was made by King Harald for his father Gorm the Old, or sometimes called Gorm the Languid. He ruled from between 936 to 958, and is believed to be the very first head of what would turn into the Danish monarchy. Amazingly, the ship is still there today, and so are the runestones bearing the inscription left by Harald, memorializing his father for eternity. 2. Temple of Amun. The Temple of Amun is a crumbling ruin in Egypt's Siwa oasis, deep in the middle of the desert and over 180 miles from the nearest major town. The word Siwa actually comes from the Arabic word Wahat Siwa, which means protector of the Egyptian sun god Amun-Ra. As you can probably tell already, the temple itself is dedicated to the Egyptian sun god Amun, and somehow, despite years of sitting and baking in the inhospitable desert, the temple has remained in relatively good condition. It's only a short distance away from the actual town, which itself has been populated since Neolithic times, with its historical records dating back to the days of the pharaohs beginning in 2000 BC. While the Siwa oasis is fascinating and full of history, the temple is really the highlight of the ancient settlement. This is because within the temple was an oracle who was famous all over the Mediterranean region. In the year 700 BC, the oracle prophesied that Cambyses of Persia, the son of Cyrus the Great, would fail in his conquest of Africa, which he did. He was so angry at the oracle that he sent 50,000 men to burn the temple down. However, legend says that those 50,000 men vanished without a trace and never actually made it to the Temple of Amun. All I know is I wouldn't try to vandalize the temple if I were visiting. 1. Creepy face carvings. Archaeologists have been left baffled by some strange sculptures with eerie faces that have been dated back to 8,000 years ago. The bizarre figurines were found in one of the weirdest archaeological sites in Siberia. The humanoid figurines have odd features that kind of make them look like human-fish hybrids. Weirdly enough, nobody is entirely sure who made these creepy effigies or what they're meant to depict. Scientists also don't know what purpose they could have possibly served. As for the actual archaeological site, it's located on the banks of the Danube River. The settlement was inhabited over 12,000 years ago by a mixture of cultures, mostly farmers who had migrated from the east into southern Europe, along with the native hunters and gatherers. Archaeologists have called it the first city in Europe because of how organized the living arrangements were. The place is called Lepenski Vir, and it has been excavated multiple times since its discovery in the 1960s. Other than the haunting faces carved of stone, archaeologists have also found proof that this very city marked the period of time when the societies of hunters and gatherers was changing to one of farmers. Isn't it amazing what we can find out about our ancestors from 10,000 years ago? It just makes you appreciate a modern world a little bit more. Thanks for watching. Which of these strange places did you think is the weirdest? Would you like to see any of them in person? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye!